The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report with Dom and Charles.
Hello, Charles. This is going to be one of these episodes where you talk about AI, but I don't want to issue any spoilers early on, but you promised me this would actually be a positive AI story and not, I'm gathering, in the ironic sense we've been using so much throughout the year.
Yeah, that's right. This is unbridled optimism rather than the sort of bridled optimism that is actually pessimism masking his optimism.
Yes, we're very good at bridling optimism here. It's kind of become a trademark. But no, good to switch things up.
And not only that, but this is the first sort of welcome to the future style episode where we talk about technology that doesn't involve any Bluetooth. And I think there might be a mild connection between the fact that this is an unbridledly optimistic episode and there's no Bluetooth.
You know, if there's one thing that Bluetooth is good at, Charles, it's extremely mild connections.
Yes. Well, there you go. Well, maybe we should have an ad break to get some money and then we'll...
Oh, yeah, let's bridle our podcast briefly to make some money for those who haven't paid to remove ads such as this one.
Okay, so there's two stories. Which one do you want first? The one about drugs or the one about cancer?
Hang on a sec. This was the Unbridled Optimism episode. Which one do you think I'm going to feel more optimistic about?
Oh, cancer. The cancer one.
Cancer, all right.
They're both good. They're both great news stories.
I never thought I'd say this. Charles, give me cancer.
So, thing is, this is just the most amazing story ever. Okay, so this bakery in Japan had a problem because they're one of those shops that sells like hundreds of different varieties of pastries, right?
Yep.
And they'd automated the whole process of making them all. But then the problem was the checkout staff were getting really confused about which one was which, and so they couldn't work out what they were selling and what price each one should be.
Yep.
And they initially came up with this is like back 15 years ago, they came up with this solution, which was to package all their pastries in plastic, right?
Yes.
And all their consumer research showed that people think of plastic-wrapped pastries as stale, right? Which is sort of obvious, right? Like,
yeah.
Even though they're freshly made, if you get them in a plastic bag, you go, oh, these are obviously
made months ago.
They didn't want to do that. They had no idea what to do, and so what they did is they developed this rudimentary AI system, like starting 15 years ago, back in 2007, which was able to distinguish as you're putting each pastry into your basket to distinguish which one is which. So the staff at this amazing pastry store in Japan, which is apparently a chain, are not there to sort of add up the total. Like by the time you get to the checkout, the basket already knows how much you owe. They're just there to be friendly and nice to you.
What
right?
a good idea.
Yeah. So have you ever been, because you go to Japan all the time.
I haven't been to a pastry place like that, but the Japanese chain Uniqlo has these baskets at the checkout, basically, where you just chuck all your stuff into a basket and it automatically tallies up
magically
what it is.
Works it out. Right. So it's probably based on the same system, because what happened is this bakery, what happened, the next step is amazing, which is this doctor went to Japan and was amazed by this checkout basket system, right?
Sure.
And he'd been studying cancer cells, and he was going, well, actually the shape of pastries is not dissimilar to the shape of cancer cells, right? Like they sort of all look roughly similar, but they also, the things that you look for are these similar shapes in a massive cells, right?
Right.
So he rang up the bakery place and said, can I get a copy of that software that you're using, that you've developed, and try it out to help me sort out the cancer cells from the non-cancer cells?
So let me just jump in here, because the system at Uniqlo, I think, probably uses NFC in the tags or something like that. So you're saying this software can actually tell based on the shape of the pastry.
Yes. It's
what
entirely
pastry
based on the shape.
How interesting.
Yeah. So he goes away, sets it up with the cancer cells. It works perfectly. It's brilliant. Revolutionises cancer treatment. Right? Or cancer research, because it absolutely massively sped up the ability to take a sample of something and work out whether there were cancer cells growing in it. Right?
Yep.
He started doing that in 2017. That's when he sort of went to Japan and realised what an amazing piece of software that was. Then other people have started using the same pattern recognition software for a whole lot of other different things. So, analysing tissue samples for cancerous cells, analysing the readouts of big physics experiments, like, when you're trying to sort through a whole lot of data from space and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This program, which was originally designed to sort pastries, is now being applied to sort of outer space and making all these physics breakthroughs. And then also things like jewelry purveyors are using it to sort through stones and different types of jewelries and things like that to make their life easier. And you just go, see, that's a good news story. It doesn't replace anyone. It adds value to your life, and it cures cancer.
I've always said, Charles, that pastries were very important and should be pursued as a top priority in all things.
Yes.
They could also just think of the other wonderful uses they could use for this software for. They could use it at nightclubs, for instance, to see if you were good looking enough to get in. If you're in the right shape, if you had the right body fat in the right place, I wouldn't get in. But people who look really buff would get straight in just purely based on their physical appearance in an objective, inverted commas, manner. That would be great for society, wouldn't it?
I love it. And I'm sure there'd be no racial profiling in that.
None. Of course
AI.
not. Of course not.
Yeah. Because it's a robot. It's subjective. I just also will note one of the other uses that this software has now been put is to detect problems in the wiring on jet engines.
That sounds like a good thing to detect.
Yeah. So you're going net positive to humanity. That's and no Bluetooth. So, I mean, it's sort of perfect. Actually, can I just sort of backtrack a bit on that good-looking nightclub thing?
Sure.
Which is, so we just have done our national tour of our show, right? All very successful and everything like that.
Yep.
But the one thing that I was having trouble with during the run was getting people to participate in the quiz. We usually get 3 people up on stage.
I saw it.
And everywhere, people just weren't volunteering very willingly. So when I got to Melbourne, which was our last set of shows, I came up with this idea, which is to just say, okay, hands up if you think you're really good looking, because we only want good looking people up on stage tonight. It totally worked. Like, how vain are our audience that you'd always get about 2 or 3 people putting up their hand going, oh yeah, I'm good looking. And then they suddenly are volunteering for the quiz. And the added benefit is a bit of eye candy on stage. Wasn't a bad look. Like, they were right. They were the best looking people in the crowd.
So the Venn diagrams of people who think they're really good looking and presumably are, because they will have been told by everybody, and overconfident dickheads who want to speak on stage and be in your tour, they overlap. Yeah, I can see how that would work.
Yep.
You're a human AI.
Yeah. Oh, well, we should use AI to just select the quiz people beforehand. In fact, we should actually use AI to filter out people who are and aren't allowed to buy tickets to our show.
Yes, very good idea. Very good idea. Well, that is quite positive given the applications. But I mean, I just want to know when this is coming to supermarkets, Charles, because I'm absolutely sick to death of the scanning. Doing it yourself, it's boring as batshit.
Yes.
When's AI? Like, they've got cameras everywhere. Instead of using the cameras to try and catch us if we're not paying for things, why don't they use the cameras to fucking scan the products?
But don't you think the problem will be the number of false positives on that self-checkout is like 100%. At no point has the machine ever been correct when it stopped me. Right? Like it's just always, alert.
What does this mean?
Robber.
Does this mean? Well, you do look very sus. It's profiling.
Yeah.
Does this then mean that the pastries computer is wrong as well, and thereby the cancer cell detection is actually wrong? I mean, yes. We haven't discussed this. We haven't discussed. I mean, sure, it's a computer and it's probably better than nothing, but all these systems have a huge error rate, don't they?
No. This is what I'm saying is because it's Japanese and it's made by a baker.
It's Japanese.
Yes, it works. So the problem with bringing it over here is that their Woolworths wouldn't use it to help you check out your groceries. They'd use it to do something like work out which workers to sack next.
Oh yes, that's what they do.
Or which customers to tase on their way out the door.
Yeah, well, they'd use it with their pokies to work out who were the most desperate and vulnerable who'd just been given their paycheck.
Oh, no, that is exactly what they do.
Yep.
They'd use it to actually just literally work out which customers they can rob.
They can fleece
and then just
the
overcharge them. Yes, the most innumerate customers would just get like an extra surcharge and they wouldn't realise it on their bill.
Oh, hang on a sec, Charles. This is getting negative and depressing again. Let's go back to the positivity.
Fuck yeah.
And you said you had another story which was also uplifting.
Okay.
So let's leave the sad, inevitable use of this technology to fleece pokey victims. Let's just park that as inevitable and move on to something else positive after this.
Okay.
The Chaser Report. News a few days after it happens.
Okay, so this is the best news, and Dom, I know that you don't take drugs, so it's probably less good news for you than.
Well,
it
I
is to
haven't
say.
thus far, but
well.
if some of my concerns about them, such as the provenance, the risks of what it might be contaminated with, and just the general health risks, I'm not opposed to the idea of chemicals that make me happy. So it'd be nice for something to someday.
Well, I do think, look, to be honest, that's not the scope of this podcast,
Okay,
right?
sure.
But I do think that David, what's his name? Who's friend of the show? What's his name? David Little? What's his name? No, not David Little. What's the name of the Greens guy who occasionally comes on this show?
Richard Di Natale?
You know, the really nice guy.
Oh, David Shoebridge.
David Shoebridge. That's
It's
it.
so hard to tell one white man from another these days.
You know that drugs are essentially legal in Canberra now
I do.
because of the Greens running the state down there, or no, the territory down there.
Have you been down
And
yet
so-
to take advantage?
No, I haven't. Well, we went to Canberra, but I didn't get any drugs.
Because
Anyway,
I hear that people are. It's the one thing that's finally got people to go to Canberra.
yeah, no, I've heard that there's party. Look, and Michaelia Cash has created a meme because she went into Parliament and outlined all the reasons for why people are coming to Canberra, for the drugs and the cocaine and the clear, the safety in the drugs. And she was thinking that it was all a negative thing. And so it's been turned into a pop song and everything.
There you go.
Anyway, point is, this breakthrough is not that. But so that needs to happen. But this breakthrough is pretty amazing. So as you may know, there's a sort of microdosing sort of study going on across the world. Like they've sort of realised that MDMA has amazing psychological benefits, especially to help couples communicate with each other and to help with empathy. And, they've tried it out on soldiers and things like that, and it's helped with PTSD, and it's made people, permanently less racist. There's all these amazing benefits.
I've talked to medical professionals about the benefits of microdosing MDMA. I understand that this is a real thing and that you're not just making it up because you want MDMA, although that may also be true. But
Yes.
I just wonder, Charles, how much MDMA would you need, bearing in mind he's a large guy, to make Ben Roberts-Smith not a murderer? Is that a mega dose?
Well, I think this might be the problem is there's not enough MDMA in the world.
Interesting.
To give him an empathy transplant. But
no,
look,
this is a
I
thing
thi-
that's being tested. Yeah, it's a real
so-
thing, particularly in Canberra, I guess.
So the one thing that researchers, and this is in Europe, this was I think in the Netherlands, where they started noticing that none of the patients that they were giving the real MDMA to, like not the control group, were getting any sort of hangover the next day. Or you know how there's always this idea of the Eccy Tuesday. You'd have a pill on a Saturday.
I've been up close to people going through that, and it's not pretty.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's
right.
as though you have a finite amount of joy, and if you take the
Yes.
ecstasy and sort of fit all your joy into a few hours of intense
Yes.
joy, then you pay the price with misery for the next few days.
Yes, and the theory was actually that what ecstasy does is it taps into your serotonin.
Yep.
And it floods your brain with serotonin, and then you sort of end up with a deficit, the next few days, as you just said. That's the actual chemical sort of reaction that was assumed to be going on, right? But no matter how hard they tried, they could not get their patients to have these sort of hangover effects. Like it just
Really?
wasn't happening. And this was a phenomenon across the world. So then somebody decided to do a study on the hangover effects of ecstasy, like to actually try and work out what variable was missing. Was it that the medicinal doses were just not big enough to trigger some sort of terrible hangover style effect? Or was it that, it was too pure, and that actually there was something else going into commercially available MDMA?
So
that
it was the
wasn't
stuff they cut it with that might have been causing the hangover.
yeah.
Okay.
And in doing this study, they realised that actually the impact on the brain of ecstasy is not what was widely assumed. It doesn't flood your brain with serotonin and then lead to a deficit. That just is not true. It's just completely not true. It has a whole lot of different other effects, and it opens up reactors and things like that. There's no sort of deficit thing that goes on later on. And what Eccy Tuesday has now been sort of almost like peer-reviewed, proven to sort of be, is a non-existent effect.
Oh.
And that actually what's going on with Eccy Tuesdays seems to be that if you spend all night on drugs, partying, and you just dance like for hours and hours and hours on end and chat to lots of people and spend tons of energy, you feel a bit tired a couple of days later.
So it's just exhaustion.
Literally, it's nothing to do with the drug. Like, if you did that without any drugs, you would still feel shit a couple of days later. It's just literally not enough sleep.
That's very funny. The microdosing works because it's not completely destroying you with exhaustion.
Yeah, that's right. Microdosing works. But also, if you get up and have an ecstasy at 8 a.m. and it's all over and you get a good night's sleep that night, you'll be fine. Like, as we head into summer, Dom, is that not the best news ever?
Well,
Does it not make you want to
me.
go immediately down to Canberra?
No, I've interviewed people from the drug testing centre. It certainly didn't make me want to take drugs, the amount of shit that they found in the drugs.
Yeah.
But on the bright side, it sounds as though there is a happy medium. So, Charles, you could experiment with this quite legally, couldn't you, in Canberra?
Well, I think, is it legal or is it just not illegal?
No, it's not legal, actually. Yeah, they've just decriminalised it, I think, for personal.
It's just like there's no
It's not
consequences.
completely Amsterdam, no.
Yeah. No, it's sort of like you go down there and they go, "Ooh, you took drugs. Naughty you."
Yeah, that might not be the exact nature of the system, but let's go with that for the time being.
No, that's actually ironclad legal advice. If you get into trouble, just refer the authorities to me.
Very good. Okay. Well, look, these are good things. No, I'm glad to hear that all the assholes I had to spend time with coming down off ecstasy. It wasn't ecstasy that was to blame. It was their incredibly stupid lifestyle choices.
And it's
good.
just their innate assholeism. Like,
Well,
it's
in
not
many
the drugs
cases,
at all.
yes, that's right.
But look, and I think I've just worked out the perfect application for the AI that sorts through things.
Oh.
Which is we could buy a whole lot of drugs, get the AI, and then it could sort it through which ones to have next.
I see.
Like, that could be, don't you think?
I see where you're going. It can,
Yeah, and maybe when I become a drug dealer, I can get it to sort all the different drugs that are for sale, and so people don't have to. We don't have to add it up.
Great, Charles. You go do that. Go do that and tell everyone you're doing it on a podcast. That'll work.
Well, you know my phone number if you need something. Hey. Oh, if only people could see Dom's face right now. Our gears
to be honest, I just need a microdose of MDMA to get through the day. I'm exhausted.
It is. I think this should be our last week, Dom. I think.
We're
on Friday.
We're done. Let's call it this week. I think that's right.
Yeah, we've called it for Albo. We're calling it for the Chaser.
We'll give you some.
We'll come back next year.
No, not forever. Just for the year. We'll resurface
But-
some classic content for you so that the feed keeps ticking over.
Really?
But no, yes.
Okay.
Well,
I think we should do like once a week in January.
yeah, sure. Why not?
We do like a new episode once a week in January.
Yep.
And then we come back firing in February.
Firing.
With a whole new format. We got some ideas for.
I wouldn't say whole new format. Some innovation may be evident. Let's just set expectations low at this stage.
I love it. Lower your expectations. This is the Chaser Report 2024.
Exciting changes coming in 2024. If you're excited by modest evolution of the podcast, you know already.
Mildly exciting changes.
Slightly different.
Gradually improve. Gradual improvement.
Exactly.
A slightly new format that will not really rock your world.
Coming soonish. Great. Done.
I would just note before we leave that Spotify has a whole lot of posters up plugging the fact that some podcast that they've done this year has got 6 million downloads. And I just go, we got more than that.
We do.
Fuck you.
Yeah, we're just
Suck shit.
about on 7, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. Go
they
us.
can. Yeah, and we don't have billboards. They've got billboards.
Can we get billboards? They can't be expensive these days, can they? Can we afford billboards?
Yeah, I think we just get a whole lot of billboards. That should be, and that can be our slogan on the billboards. Mildly exciting. Don't get too excited, but it'll be slightly better.
Half decent. Sometimes, when they're not that depressed.
Okay. Can we go now?
I think we should.
Our Gears from Road, we are part of the Iconoclast Network. Catch you tomorrow.